To come out of executive session right now.
So moved.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I will call this meeting to order. And Reverend Griff Vaudier, Coordinator for the Kingman Ministerial Association, if you'll please come up and lead us in the invocation, and Supervisor Moss in the pledge.
Thank you. Let us pray. Sovereign Lord God, we come before you this morning to invite your presence and your blessings to attend the business of Mohave County. In 1863, businessman and journalist Richard McCormick chose the Arizona state motto, which is also the motto for Mohave County, Ditat Deus, which means God enriches. This morning, we ask you to enrich the wisdom, insight, and understanding of our Board of Supervisors as they face the challenges of governing this region in the face of the complexities of our 21st century. Grant them guidance as they discern the path of our county's future and enable them to choose what is best for our people. As they grapple with the various issues dealing with economics, environment, industry, trade, and territorial concerns, give them the strength of character and your sense of integrity that will enable them to promote peace and prosperity in Mohave County. These things we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I need a motion to call for an executive session to be held on November 17th, 2014 at 9 a.m. for discussion and consultation with legal counsel in accordance with ARS 38-431.03, A3 and 4.
So moved.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Are there any committee reports today or legislative reports?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Arizona Association of Counties put together a webinar on social media moderated by their Senior Legislative Associate, Trey Williams. The webinar went over the different social media platforms available to local governments. Started with Facebook by stating there are currently over 1 billion users on the platform. Communication occurs through status updates on Facebook. Status updates allow users to upload photos, videos, share a news story, post hyperlinks, among other things. Next, he mentioned Twitter. While Twitter is not as popular, it's still a valuable tool for local governments. With Twitter, users communicate through tweets, which are 140 characters or less. Twitter was the founder of the hashtag, which is the meta tag that links together all tweets that include the identical tag. He mentioned the difference between Twitter and Facebook. Facebook is designed for personal interactions and intimate socialization. Status updates may be unlimited number of characters and offer the ability to share more information. Twitter, on the other hand, is built around sharing short, rapid bursts of information, 140 character limits, known as microblogging. It is heavily used by journalists, columnists, and other professionals. It is designed more for impersonal transactions with professional acquaintances or people with whom you share similar interests. Managing secure software development and outsourced technology. To end Cybersecurity Month, the National Association of Counties hosted a webinar moderated by King County, Washington's Chief Information Security Officer, Ralph Johnson, on managing secure software development and outsourced technology services. Speaker Whitaker, Chief Information Officer of Rottingham County, North Carolina, gave some tips on what local governments should ensure is included in any contract made with an outsourced technology company. Some of the questions that need to be asked before any contract signed are, is our data protected? Is our data retrievable? And who is liable for lost data? He also mentioned that the CIA triad methodology that should be used to calculate the rewards and risk of outsourcing. The CIA security model stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. It is important to limit access to information to the right people, to ensure that the information is accurate, and to have all systems and resources available to the right people when and where they need it. Another speaker, the Director for Software and Supply Chain Assurances with the Department of Homeland Security, spoke about free resources offered to counties to help manage secure software development and outsourced technology services. One resource you mentioned is the Department of Homeland Security Cyber Resilience Review. That is a no-cost, non-technical assessment of critical infrastructure services. This can be done remotely or in person. This review assesses counties' resilience and ability to manage the cyber risk to its critical services and assets during normal operations and during times of operational stress and crises. Lastly, Joseph Ellington, Director of Government Security Services, spoke about the issues counties are seeing and being able to keep up with the need for cybersecurity experts. He mentioned that 56% of organizations have been the target of cyber attacks, with the average loss of $8.9 million. Currently, 11% of total IT budgets are being spent on security, and that number keeps rising. He listed several challenges IT departments will have to overcome, such as having fewer resources and bandwidth availability, the need for 24/7 global management, fragmented systems and procedures, and protecting data that is both at rest and in motion. I spoke at the Government Coalition of the County's Chambers of Commerce for Supervisor Moss. We were invited to speak on the Planet Ranch issue. The chambers agreed with us. We'll be writing letters in support of our opposition to the congressional legislation. I also participated in Lower Colorado River Multi-Species Coalition along with Supervisor Moss, and I will defer to him for that report. That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Moss, do you have anything?
As Supervisor Johnson mentioned, we did attend jointly a session of the Multi-Species Conservation Steering Committee. It's a very long acronym for a federal committee. We explained the concerns of Mohave County, Arizona with the Planet Ranch transaction. They had been scheduled to vote this last October on the issue. They instead, after hearing the presentation from myself and Supervisor Johnson, elected to push off any decision until April with the intention, the hope for attention is that the litigation process will resolve things, or more fortuitously, that someone from Freeport-McMoran will actually engage with Mohave County, Arizona. I'm not holding my breath on either outcome, but I did come away reassured from this meeting, as I believe did Supervisor Johnson, that Mohave County is not the weakest dog in this fight. We do have options, and we will do what we can to protect the Planet Ranch water supply for Mohave County future generations. Thank you.
Anyone else? Number 3, do we have a county administrator's report?
Madam Chairman, at our last meeting, Supervisor Watson requested that the county update the board on our activities in relationship to the Ebola virus, and what I've done is ask our health director to come and address that issue for us.
Okay, very good. Patty Mead,
Thank
tell
you.
us about Ebola.
Thank you, Chairman Angus, Supervisor Moss, Supervisor Bishop, Supervisor Watson, and Supervisor Johnson. I am here today to present you an overview of our preparations to respond to Ebola. I think I'm going to leave the disease itself and all the information about it to the website. I think there's plenty of information on the CDC information, and you can also watch the talk we gave to employees last week. Just to reiterate, there are no cases of Ebola here in Arizona. So we are in preparations to respond, but we have not responded to anything yet. On September 2, Christy Bronson, our nursing service manager, contacted all of the infection control practitioners at our 4 local hospitals and presented them with information regarding Ebola and infection control precautions. As you will remember, Mr. Duncan was not diagnosed to September 30, so she did that way in advance of having a first case here. This was because we had several health practitioners coming back to the United States with Ebola, and she wanted to make sure that just in case our hospitals knew how to respond and they had the most information we could provide. Shortly thereafter, we forwarded the CDC guidelines for appropriate PPE, or personal protective gear, testing and isolation to make sure that they had all of the information necessary. Our public health command team started meeting on October 6th, that was a few days after Mr. Duncan was diagnosed on the 30th. And at that point, we also met with our medical director, Dr. Wynn, to make sure that he was in contact with our local area physicians. We have had our isolation and quarantine plan reviewed with our county attorney and with the sheriff's office. We've worked with procurement to identify companies that will do biohazard cleanup for Level A here in Mohave County, and I think we've identified 6 companies that are able to do that. Last week, we had a tabletop exercise on Tuesday, and we had about 50 participants from law enforcement, emergency management, county attorneys, risk management, hospitals, the Fort Mohave Tribe, fire departments, and EMS. We, let's see here. Next steps as a result of that tabletop exercise. We are planning on meeting with law enforcement and emergency management to review and identify any concerns with our isolation and quarantine protocols. We're streamlining our own communications within our health department because we recognize that we have several people emailing all of our partners the same type of information, and it was easier for them to receive the information from one main person from our department. We've identified specific personal protective needs and training. We actually have one of our health department staff at Anniston this week engaged in the week-long training to identify and respond to Ebola, where she will learn personal protective gear donning and doffing and come back and be able to train not only our staff, but all agencies here in Mohave County. We are encouraging our PIOs to attend the county-wide joint information meetings that they have, so we can all, obviously, if a situation like that were to happen here, we would have some communication issues, so we'd need to make sure we're all on the same page. And we're continuing to prepare our hospitals to receive possible Ebola patients by working with them on a daily basis if needed with regards to new information coming through from CDC and the federal partners. Comments, questions?
Does anybody have any questions?
I have questions, Madam Chair. Thank you. Do we have adequate suits for protection of our employees and the hospitals and everybody else?
I can't say for the hospitals. I believe most of them are prepared, and the advice we're being given is that we should prepare with what we have, but we have indeed ordered more personal protective equipment for our own staff here. And we're negotiating with ADHS to see if they will pay for that. If they won't, we may be coming to the board to help with the cost of that additional gear.
How soon will we have those?
Well, it's on back order is my understanding right now, because they're making sure the 4 hospitals that would receive patients from airlines have enough protective gear first, and then we will receive ours.
What about for our first responders?
Byron communicates with the first responders. We have a communication set up that it goes from the health department through Byron to those, so I'm going to let him answer that question.
Well, that will also include your nursing staff, which will have to go and evaluate any location that has.
Yes. But we've had multiple trainings with our own staff on donning and doffing the protective gear that we have.
Supervisor Johnson, one of the things we've communicated with the first responder agencies, and we're going to follow up with them this week, is to identify just where they're at with their PPE and what their potential gaps are if they need to go to the higher level of PPE. A lot of our EMS personnel are used to dealing with communicable diseases, and they have PPE and they have protocols. The question is, do they need the higher level of equipment that's been recommended by the CDC? So we'll be communicating with each of our first responders and seeing just exactly what the situation is. If they need more equipment, we may have to look at financial sources for trying to get some of that equipment. One of the things that we have emphasized in our meetings and in our tabletop exercises with both the hospitals and the first responders is the existing level of equipment they have, which is pretty much based on the stuff that CDC recommended prior to this last update, where they recommended going to the hoods and enclosing all skin and everything. That PPE can be effective if it is done correctly. And so one of the things we're emphasizing is not just the higher level of PPE, but the training and the practice on using that stuff. Because that's where it'll come into where they'll be able to prevent any type of exposure. And I think when you look at what happened in Dallas, there were supposedly about 70-some people that were potentially exposed to this patient, and only 2 of them ended up being exposed. So I think that says that the lower level equipment can be effective if it's used correctly. And so right now we're approaching it on the basis that be sure you have the training and the practice in place with your existing equipment, and then let's see what we need to do to get additional equipment at the higher level.
Are we set up with all of our 911 operators for questions that we should be asking just in case?
Yes, we are. That was one, actually, we started recommending that prior to the new CDC guidelines come out. The original CDC guidelines indicated that dispatch centers should only be asking the questions with regard to symptoms and foreign travel when they got a 911 call if there was already an identified Ebola case in the jurisdiction. And we said that's kind of shutting the door after the horse is out. So we started recommending to the dispatch centers that they do that even prior to the CDC going to that level. And some of our dispatch centers were actually doing that already. So they have the protocol in place where they will, if there's a call come in, they will ask for the symptoms, which are, of course, similar to flu. But the key thing is to ask them if this person has had foreign travel or contact with somebody who's had foreign travel. That will be the indicator to provide, when EMS is dispatched, to give them a heads up that they may have a potential case here, that they need to use the higher level of isolation PPE. And they also have a checklist. All the EMS people have a checklist where they will ask the same questions as well. So there's a redundancy there. If for some reason it's not asked at the dispatch center, the EMS people will ask those questions and determine if this is a possible Ebola patient.
Have we also
Plus,
set up?
we have a meeting with them next week, sorry.
Okay.
They have I don't know, quarterly meeting, but we have a meeting, we will be meeting with all of them next week.
Have we also set up something for possible quarantine of our first responders because of the 21-day period? If they do come in contact with something, we might not want them going home to their families or someplace else. Are we working on that?
There's a protocol in place for EMS personnel that's already there because they deal with communicable diseases all the time. And there's a protocol in place where they will go through a process of if it's a potential Ebola patient, and we won't find out for sure because in Arizona there's about a 24-hour delay in getting the test results because it has to be transported to Phoenix and verified down there whether it's positive or negative. But there's a protocol in place that if it's a suspected case, then those EMS personnel will go to a higher level of isolation to be sure that they're not spreading that anywhere. Most of our ambulances, after every run, they decontaminate their ambulances anyway. But some of them are going to a higher level now of decontamination, just to be safe.
Right, well, I was more thinking along the lines of Miss Mead's people and our deputy sheriffs who might have to go on a call with those people for their training. And then we're also going through how to get rid of or dispose of the PPEs that they do use,
Right.
because you see where they had a problem in New York where they were just throwing them in the trash can, which
Yeah.
didn't give the citizens much.
Yeah, we have a disposal procedure for that to be sure that anything that they've used will be disposed of properly and not expose anybody else. And our sheriff's office, all of our law enforcement agencies have been heavily involved in our meetings and our exercise. And a lot of them have the protective equipment that will protect them. But those protocols are there to be sure that they protect themselves and they're not able to spread it elsewhere.
Okay, are we going through a procurement process to get somebody under contract in case we do have a problem for the cleanup?
Yes, we are. We, over the last week, environmental health and procurement have been working on identifying those companies that will do level A cleanup. One of the things we found out initially was even though companies advertise that they do biohazard cleanup, They don't necessarily do level A, which is Ebola. So we had to contact them directly and ask some pointed questions to be sure that they were telling us the right thing. And Environmental Health did a real good job on that, and we ended up identifying 6 companies, 3 of them in the Vegas area, 3 of them in the Phoenix area. We are going to proceed with the procurement process on at least 2 and probably 3 of those companies to get contracts in place ahead of time.
I guess that bothers me a little bit. Is there any way that, because I don't think that if it does ever get to Mohave County, obviously going to hit Vegas or Phoenix before us, at least that would be my guess. And those crews are going to be pretty busy in the metropolitan areas. Is there any way that we can work with a local company to get them trained, even if we have to sign a contract and pay for them just to have them done? Or have you even looked at something like that so we have somebody locally?
There's a couple of companies locally, but they don't do level A, and since they're reluctant to do level A, I guess I would be reluctant to try to talk to them about having the training. I would have a question of reliability even if they agreed to it. But that's something we could look at and explore.
All right, now if Ms. Mead is the health officer and she controls the county in times of a health emergency, she supersedes everybody. Will there need to be any kind of declaration from the Board of Supervisors if that was to happen?
According to County Attorney, no.
Okay, I guess the reason I'm asking that is because I see back east where, I mean, I'm a firm believer in quarantine, and I believe we do it ahead of time, where a judge came out and said they're not going to be quarantining. Will our policy or will your policy be that you will quarantine somebody who is under the infection or has a chance of contracting or showing up with the systems in the 21 days?
In answer to that question, I think it would have to be looked at the particulars. Obviously, in a situation like this, we'd also be getting advice from federal partners. Base our answer on science. And so, yes, if quarantine was appropriate, yes, absolutely.
I think we've had this discussion, and we actually put together an isolation and quarantine plan several years ago for H1N1, and a lot of the aspects of that apply to any contagious disease, including Ebola. But I think as Patty says, each individual case has to be evaluated, but our thinking is we need to be proactive and ahead of the curve, and so we're going to, if there's any kind of potential risk at all, that's what we'll be recommending is isolation and quarantine.
Do you have any question, Supervisor Watson?
I don't really have any questions. I just wanted to say thank you very much for keeping Mohave County in a proactive situation here, getting us above and ahead of the curve. Because Mohave County is really the crossroads of the Southwest, it would be almost impossible for us to guarantee that this is not going to happen. And for you to be ahead of the curve is much more pleasing to me to see that we're taking that situation and taking that stance. And I'd like to thank you very much. Both of you done an extremely good job. I know it's been exhaustive over the last couple of weeks, but thank you for your excellent work in putting this together. I know there's still some more work to be done, but thank you.
Thank you.
I still have another question, Madam Chair. Have we looked into, in other areas, they've had a problem of false reporting. And I think we need to make it clear if we have the authority so that people aren't coming into our jail and, shouting fire in our jail or any place else, that we will, or we can prosecute them. Do we have that in place?
Yes, we do. There's a state statute that covers practically any kind of false reporting that impacts emergency personnel or that creates a potential hazard to the public. The county attorney's office, we consulted with them on this, and also the sheriff's office, and they both feel confident that statute is there and that we can utilize it to arrest or prosecute somebody that creates a false report, that tries to create a hoax like we've seen in some of the areas of the country, and create a public anxiety or public disturbance. So we do have that in place, and the sheriff's office is agreeable that that's something that they would be on top of and they agree with. So we'll be watching for that type of thing.
All right, and just to make sure everybody understands, there's also a part in that section that says they can be liable for any cost associated with that, and if you have a minor child, the parents can be.
Right, absolutely. If it resulted in a dispatch of personnel, EMS, or law enforcement, whatever, to a scene and turned out to be a deliberate false report, then those people would potentially be liable for all of those expenses for responding to that. I think the same thing would apply probably in a hospital setting if there was expenses there that was created.
And I appreciate also getting the information out, because I think the more people know and the more they, trust that we have it handled, the less chance there is for problems coming from the public. As long as we keep them well informed and we do the quarantine, I have no problem. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that was number 3. Off to number 4. Motion to approve the minutes of the September 2nd, September 15th, and October 6th, 2014 Board of Supervisor meetings, the September 4th, 2014 special meeting minutes, and the September 2nd, 2014 workshop minutes.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, this morning we have 3 presentations, and I'd like to call Mr. Dick Whittingham from the Moss Mine. He'd like to give us an update. No, presentations first. Well, it's usually the other way around. Okay, is that how we want to do it? Okay, I'm sorry.
Did I get bumped?
I'm sorry, we have to call to public first. I put it on my sheet wrong. Okay, call to public. Those wishing to address the board at the call to public regarding matters not on the board agenda must fill out and submit to the clerk a call to the public. Request to speak form located in the back of the room prior to the meeting. Action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to responding to criticism, referral to staff, or placing a matter on a future agenda. Comments are restricted to items not on the regular agenda, with the exception of the consent agenda, and must relate to matters within the jurisdiction of this board. We have several people signed up this morning. Mr. Chuck DeShazer.
Good morning. My name's Chuck DeShazer. I live at 8800 Polaris Road. I have about 3 items that I don't know if they're of any importance to anybody but me, but one is I went to pay my property taxes the other day, and they wouldn't take cash. I know there were several other people in line that seemed to have a problem with that, and my biggest problem is I've paid cash for my property taxes for probably the last 20 years, and I get there this year and they won't take it. The girl behind the counter's telling me that, they don't have armored cars or something. They're only open for 10 days over in Bullhead City each year, but this is the first year that I haven't been able to pay cash. She says, they might have too much money, they don't have armored cars, this kind of thing. My point is, why do we have a person sitting there? Why isn't there some big steel box with a stack of envelopes? Because we don't need a person there. It's just a matter of putting your tax form and your check in the box if they're not going to take cash. The second item I have is out on Polaris Road, they keep posting the notices for the Board of Supervisors meeting, the planning and zoning meetings, and all of these various workshops or whatever they're going to do. They get posted, but nobody ever comes back to pick up the notices, and so all it does is leave garbage out on the side of the road. They've been there 3 and 6 months at a time before I've picked them up and thrown them away. And I'd like to see something addressed on that issue. And the third thing is we've had a really, really bad monsoon season out in that particular area this year. And there are potholes, I can show you pictures on my iPad, that are big enough to bury a small car in. I've been living out there for many years. Every time I come to try to address it through planning and zoning or the Board of Supervisors or Public Works, there is a petition over at the Public Works to once a year bring a road grader down the road, and they say we can't get there from here because 5 miles of Polaris Road apparently doesn't exist. There is no legal right-of-way, but the planning and zoning and the assessor and all other county vehicles seem to be able to get down that road. Those are my issues. Any questions?
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask staff, is there something we can do to clean up those notices and make sure that they're taken down after?
Madam Chairman, I'll speak with our departments and make sure that occurs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brad Sourbeer?
Good morning. My name is Brad Sourbeer. My address is 13250 North 11th Avenue in Phoenix. The reason I stopped in today is there's been recent changes to the sign code. This seems really loud. Is this okay? Okay. That were done in July, and it talked about actually there was some highways that were removed from the scenic designation, and I think something was overlooked in that regard. Highway 68 and part of 93 were removed from the scenic designation. However, Highway 95 was not. It's currently designated as scenic through the town of Lake Havasu City, which, as we know, is not necessarily a scenic route, as we would understand scenic routes to be. Like 93 from Wickenburg to Kingman would be a scenic route, much more so than Lake Havasu City. So, I was just going to ask the board to see if we could request the planning department to review the sign code further to remove the designation of scenic on Highway 95. I'm not sure the exact process to take that in. The county has it designated, but as far as I know, the highway department does not.
Okay. Is that something that we could look into?
I think, Madam Chair, sir, we're not allowed to answer your questions up here. It's just call
Oh,
to the
okay.
public. So if you're waiting
Okay.
for an answer, we can't answer you.
But I could ask the staff to look into it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Mark Shaver?
My name is Mark Shaver. I live at 4054 West Hiller Drive in Meadview, Arizona. I'd like to thank the board and members of the board who took the time to watch the Planning and Zoning October 8th meeting. And we got a copy of the response from Mr. Engstrom's regarding the conflict of interest that may have occurred on that date. We took a look at Title 8 of the Arizona statute regarding conflicts of interest, and we see that it doesn't really address this particular unique situation. And also on that Title 8, there is a section in which the town can ask and seek opinion from the state's attorney. We are currently drafting a letter to submit to our district supervisor, and hopefully they could, on our behalf, seek that opinion. One thing that we took this letter and we showed it at our community council meeting, and one of the things that we've got away that we took from it is it doesn't really inspire public confidence or trust in that particular type of situation. More directly, we no longer trust that chair. He does not, his unprofessional behavior does not inspire trust and confidence. We just saw that. But we do thank you for the timely response that you did give and put out there. But we do have a problem here, and we hope that maybe members of this board or the board will, in unison, seek that opinion so that this particular situation can be addressed in the future and that it doesn't happen again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Steve Mitchell?
Members of the board, good morning. As a resident and small business owner here in Mohave County, I find it disappointing that the Board of Supervisors public meeting is held at a time that's most inconvenient to the people that is supposed to support, the taxpayers. Civil servants and employees of the taxpayers, which I assume you guys all consider yourselves, it should be your duty and moral obligation to want to hold this at a time that's more convenient for the majority of the people. So I'd like to propose or ask your consideration to try to move these meetings to say sometime such as 6 p.m. on a Wednesday night, where most of the people who are working can then get off work, go home, do whatever they need to do, and then come and attend the meeting, thus having more involvement with the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Need his name and address.
Oh, excuse me, sir. Can you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Certainly. Steve Mitchell, 4195 Highway 68 in Golden Valley, Arizona.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to speak? The call to public? Hearing, seeing none, I close the call to public. And now we're going to the presentations. Mr. Dick Whittingham, Moss Mine.
Madam Chairman, lady, gentlemen of the Board of Supervisors, thank you for seeing me today. I do have to say I was very impressed in that dissertation on Ebola. I think I learned a lot more coming down here than I do sitting in Vancouver, Canada right now. So that was very interesting. In terms of where we are with our Moss Mine near Bullhead City, I'd just like to give you a short update. We are at the end of what we called our Phase 1 pilot plant operations phase. The heap leach pad that we have will be fully closed in a couple of weeks, and we will be putting the plant on a care and maintenance basis. The results have been much better than expected, and they've gone on a lot longer than expected. So in technical terms, we've achieved an 82% gold recovery in our process, and we were planning and hoping for 75%. So this is a huge step forward in the technical veracity of our project. So we have significantly de-risked it. Where do we go from here? We now have to complete a feasibility study. We're in the process of doing that. We are fully funded to do that, and we expect that to be completed in Q2 next year. In terms of the gold market, I'm sure any of you that's owned any gold stocks, last week was an extremely bad week for you, and it continues to be a challenge. So raising funds to build the mine will be a challenge, but we are very much still here. If anybody's in the area, come and see us in our office. Happy to still host visitors out to the site. And I think, as you know, we're very involved in some community initiatives, particularly the Colorado River Heritage Center initiative, and trying to move the Little Red Schoolhouse in Bullhead City to the community park. And John Masterson, our Chief Information Officer, who's sitting here, is heading that project on a pro bono basis. So we're hoping to keep the momentum going forward, and we have had some significant donations from corporate donors in the last couple of weeks. So we're making progress, and on that area, we're still very excited about being part of your county and being part of your community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whittingham, and I want to thank you for being such a great asset to my district, Bullhead City, and a wonderful community leader. We are very lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Chairman Angus, may I make a comment?
Yes, you may.
I think Freeport-McMoran can learn a few things from Golden Vortex.
I'll stay away from that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, anyone else have any questions for Mr. Whittingham? No, thank you very much. Okay, our next presentation is Mohave County Parks accreditation from the Commission for Accreditation of Park and Recreation Agencies, CAPRA. If Steve Lutoski will come up, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Mohave County Parks earned recognition through the Commission of Accreditation of Park and Recreation Agencies and the National Recreation and Park Association. This distinguished accomplishment was awarded during the 2014 NRPA Congress and Exposition, where Mohave County is one of 135 accredited agencies nationwide. CAPRA accreditation is the only national accreditation for park and recreation agencies, and it is a measure of an agency's overall quality of operation, maintenance, and service to the community. This mark of distinction indicates that an agency has met rigorous standards related to the management and administration of lands, facilities, resources, programs, safety, and services. As part of the accreditation process, Mohave County Parks had to demonstrate compliance with 144 recognized standards and document all policies and procedures. Such process identifies efficiencies and heightens areas of accountability, all of which translate into a higher quality of service and operation to benefit the community. Staff who championed this accreditation include our Parks Administrator, Sean Blackburn, Park Superintendents Joe Donovan for Davis Camp, Brandon Oaktay for Walpi Mountain Park, and Office Assistant Specialist Ginny Reinhold. Thank you for the opportunity to be recognized.
Here is your... Okay, our next presentation is to acknowledge the service and commitment of Mohave County employees that are veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces. With Veterans Day coming up, I believe this was Supervisor Johnson's idea, so I'm going to throw it over to him.
Madam Chair, if I might, in the interest of the military and hurry up and wait, I'm waiting on somebody, if we can delay this till a little bit later. Yes.
Okay, so we'll come back to this. Okay, we're off to the consent agenda now. The consent agenda items 5 to 31 will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion, minus any items pulled for discussion. Do we have any items you'd like to pull off?
None for me, Madam Chairman.
14 for me, Madam Chair. Hearing
14.
none of the other ones, Madam Chair, if that's all, make a motion to approve 5 through 32 minus 14.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, consent agenda carried. Number 14 is to authorize the medical examiner to search for federal, state, and other grants to procure equipment for medical examiner services for Mohave County cases and work with Mohave County staff in the completion of the grants and execution of contracts and agreements on behalf of Mohave County.
A motion for discussion, Madam Chair.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Who would like to answer questions on this, I guess? Mr. Duranceau, this is the first time that I've seen this on an agenda, I believe. Have there been any grants procured by our coroner's office prior to this one?
Supervisor, Board of Supervisor member, Supervisor Johnson, I believe there were some grants that were procured in the past, or there were some grants that were secured for the medical examiner in the past.
I guess that's the question I have. I guess that we'd have the attorney or the county administrator look into that, because when those grants come, it's obviously to Mohave County, and we have certain requirements that we must follow in order to protect all of our federal grants that come in. So I just thought about that, and I don't know what the board feels on that, but I think it's something we should look into, because equipment, if it's equipment's purchased, needs to be in Mohave County's name and kept and not used for some other things.
And Madam Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, one of the things when we were approached with this particular item, one of the things that Susie and I wanted to ensure is that, one, our medical examiner was if she was applying for any equipment, it would be on behalf of Mohave County, not on behalf of herself. And two, that any equipment that was acquired through the grant process, since she was applying for it on behalf of Mohave County, would be the property of Mohave County once that particular item was procured or granted. And so I can't really speak for what has happened to the past. I just can speak on this particular issue.
Supervisor Johnson, I was just informed by our OMB that some of the equipment that was purchased in the past are in our inventory, Mohave County inventory, correct? Yes.
Key word being some.
Do you want to?
Gene Hepler, Director of OMB. There was a freezer unit that was purchased through a grant that we put on inventory, and there was also the table equipment that she uses for autopsies that was through a grant, and it's on our inventory and accounted for.
All right. I guess I'd ask Attorney Ekstrom, would a motion such as approving item number 14 but directing staff to bring back information as to any grants and the status of those grants to our next board meeting that were retained by the medical examiner under the Mohave County's authority?
Madam Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, of course you have that authority.
Okay. That's a motion then.
Okay. Do you need that repeated? Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Now, do we need to approve item 14?
That was the one.
I made
He made
to
a
approve it and then ask them to bring back on the other ones. I
Okay.
did it all
Thank
in
you.
one.
Okay, I open the public hearing for item number 33. Discussion, possible action, adoption of Board of Supervisor Resolution Number 2014-163, extension of time for a rezone of assessors parcel numbers 221-35-021 and -022 to establish an ESP energy overlay, solar photovoltaic, how do you say that, voltaic? Zone on property zoned RE 10A residential recreation 10-acre minimum lot size zone in the South Mohave Valley vicinity, east of Vanderslice Road between Joy Lane and Lippin Boulevard, Mohave County, Arizona. The commission recommended a denial by a vote of 6-1, with Commissioner Walker voted against the motion. Is there anyone here to speak to this? Please come up.
Good morning. My name is Derek Fromm. I'm one of the partners of Greenstone Renewables, the applicant. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My address is 11614 East Terra Drive in Scottsdale. And I'm here with Ron Bernstein, the landowner. And I thank you for the opportunity to let us update you on the status of our project and the substantial progress we've made to date, particularly since our last meeting here about a year ago. Where we are is in August we applied for an extension for the period to meet your conditions for the rezone. We had substantial discussions with the staff of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Since our application date, we've made tremendous progress and achieved pretty much all the milestones required for the project to move forward. In particular, we've completed the long-term power purchase agreement with Mohave Electric Cooperative, one of your members. In the community, we've completed the interconnection agreement with Mohave Electric. This project for them enables Mohave Electric to meet its renewable energy obligations under the Arizona rules. And it tremendously helps their members meet their green objectives. We have fully funded the project since our application in August. we've also transferred the ownership and the funding and the operation of the solar farm, which is the first phase of our project, to a very large public utility company, Constellation, out of Baltimore. We have secured all the financing. We've filed a site plan. The site plan has been approved last week. We filed a building permit application, which is currently pending. And we're effectively ready for construction, subject to the building permit being approved, hopefully in this December, in order for the project to go online and be in service between April next year and July or June next year. So we made tremendous progress since our last meeting, and we're asking for you to approve the rezone, given that we are literally at the finish line.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
I do, Mr. Fromm, and for folks in the audience, I did speak with Mr. Fromm last week. I had a very pleasant conversation with you, and thank you for that, sir. Just to make sure I'm clear on what happened, much of the information you've presented to us was not presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Is that, the Planning and Zoning Commission, is that correct?
That is correct, to the extent that we closed on our financing on September 19th, which was after the date of the application filing which was, I think, the deadline was August 17th. We completed the power purchase agreement and got board approval from Mohave Electric, which also occurred shortly before September 19th. And therefore, there was an acceleration of positive developments to move this project forward, all of which started to occur towards the end of September. We had spoken up to the moment of our application with members of the staff at the Planning and Zoning Commission level, and we work on the assumption that that was also why our item was on the consent agenda for the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting in early October. And we were not present at the commission meeting, and therefore we were in no position at that point in time to respond and update the commission, just as we're updating you on the status of our achievements.
So your item was on the consent agenda, and then it was taken out, but you were
Correct.
not there
Correct.
to answer questions?
It was considered a 100% no problem situation there, and we were basically blindsided, not knowing that there was nobody going to be there because Mr. Montgomery passed away, and he was working with Derek on this. And what happened was nobody needed to show up because we were going to get the extension approved at the Planning and Zoning, and then all of a sudden I get a call from him that said, we got blindsided on this one, so we basically went to the next step, and here we are. But we're rounding third base, and we'll be ready to start construction anytime. I've signed ungodly amounts of papers for the lease. It's going to be a long-term thing, 25, 30 years.
25 plus 10-year extension.
Yeah, it's a long time, so.
My take on it is this, and this is just something I'm throwing out there. We now have information that the commission did not. We rely upon the expertise of the commission. I think they meet monthly, is that correct, Mr. Hendricks? Would it hurt your project if we were to refer this back to the commission for them to come back to us the next monthly meeting, so that they can have access to this information and then review it and give us their recommendation?
Well, we are working under a very tight timetable for the power purchase agreement to meet milestones for Mohave Electric, and our construction. We're really aiming at being able to break ground in December, so that we can start building and get this project online per agreed schedules.
Okay. When we give extensions, I'm sorry, Mr. Hendricks.
I received some new information that wasn't privy to the commission or the board this morning in talking with Chris Ballard. Apparently, staff has, pathway to completion includes the issuance of a building permit, and the actual time for completion for completing this zoning doesn't expire until like next week. So they do have some time to complete all conditions of the zoning, which the final step would be the issuance of a building permit. The building permit for the grading plan is currently in review with our building department, and flood control has already reviewed and signed off on the building permit application. So Ron Durgan, our chief building official, is wanting to take one last look at the building permit to make sure the foundations and other drawings match the grading permit for this project. We believe that conceivably the approval, unless there's some extenuating circumstances, would actually happen with either today or tomorrow. On receipt of the fees for the building permit, we'll issue the building permit for the grading, and then they will have complied with the pathway for completion.
Would it be a fair statement, Mr. Hendricks, that is also your understanding that there is information the commission did not have, which may have changed their decision if they had it regarding their substantial progress?
Chairman Angius, Supervisor Moss, absolutely. And this information that I'm giving to the board and that I provided the board in an email on Friday was brand new information of recent events that just happened.
Okay. Now, these extensions are normally given for a year. Is that the case?
And you're getting a little bit out of my area of expertise. May I have Chris Ballard come up and answer that question?
Madam Chairman, Mr. Moss, members of the board, typically the extensions of time are given for 1 year. The applicant can, for reasons of their project schedule, request a longer period of time, and it's within the purview of the commission and the board to grant that time.
Can we give a lesser period of time?
I would believe so.
When you put it on the consent agenda, you had, the recommendation was for the year, correct?
Madam Chairman, members of the board, yes, the recommendation was for a year, and it was based on progress that the applicant had made.
Can I get in this? What was staff's recommendation on this to begin with for planning and zoning?
On Mr. Johnson, on the extension of time?
Yes.
Staff's recommendation was to extend the time for 1 year.
And what have they done to live up to their obligations as far as what they were supposed to get done?
They had acquired or had signed a power purchase agreement with Mohave Electric Co-op. They were in pre-application discussions with us on their site plan at the time. They had also represented to us and then have since then given us evidence that they were coordinating with the Mohave Sun Valley Airport. All of these were conditions of approval on the original rezone.
So you're saying that our Planning and Zoning Commission had all that information? Or they did not have that information?
Mr. Johnson, they did have that information.
Okay, that's all I had.
Madam Chairman, may I clarify my statements on what they did have? The email that I sent out to you all Friday, basically the information that the Planning and Zoning Commission didn't have is that, and Chris, please correct me if I'm wrong, that quite possibly before and probably before the rezone expires, that these gentlemen up here will have met all conditions of that rezone. So whatever's decided today, if you decide to extend or deny, if they meet those conditions prior to, I believe the date is the 10th, is that correct, Chris?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it's November 14th.
Prior to the 14th, then any action that the board takes at this meeting regarding an extension of time is really inconsequential because they would have met the conditions of the rezone. Is that correct, Chris?
Madam Chairman, members of the board, that is correct.
And that's what I tried to relay to the board, but thank you for the opportunity.
If I could, Madam Chair? With that clarification, and you got to where eventually I was going with that, if we approve the extension through December 31st of 2014, that should give them more than enough time in the next month and a half to meet all the conditions if they're on the cusp, like they say they are. Because it's not completion of the work, it's all this other preconditions that they're supposed to be meeting. Is that correct?
Madam Chairman, Supervisor Moss, that's my understanding. And I might have the wrong term, but the board approved a pathway for completion for rezones. That determination of completion is the issuance of a building permit, not the completion of the work.
And for those who are listening, and that's because the building permit itself has an expiration date. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah. Madam Chairman, members of the board, the building permit, once issued, is good for 6 months. Within that 6 months, the applicant must request inspections.
If it goes to the December 31 date, does that change anything for you? Does that make it any more difficult? Do you have to come back at a certain time? What's the difference between if we do it till December 31st or if we gave you the year that you originally asked for and was originally approved by our staff?
Madam Chairman, members of the board, the applicant has actually submitted, since the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, has submitted and obtained approval for a site plan. They have also submitted 2 building permits. One's a grading permit and one's actually for the array structure itself. And right now, the grading plan is in review within the department itself. As Mr. Hendricks stated, barring any unforeseen situation, we should be done with that review either today or tomorrow. So the answer to that is that, you know, they're so close to being done, I don't know that either date would matter. I think they're going to be done before November 14th with their schedule for development.
Yes, Supervisor Watson.
Thank you, Chairman. Angus, for the record, I think Mr. Bernstein needs to state his name and address for the record.
Ron Bernstein, 30270 Escalante, Meadview, Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Bernstein.
And, you know, December 31st or next year, whenever you want to extend this, I mean, I can understand you people don't like giving the farm away. When I was on the board, I didn't like either. People flipping lots, trying to get zoning, trying to make money on the deal. This is a pretty much done deal. He's had a several-year commitment of getting these people together, and I can't even begin to explain to you the ungodly paperwork, okay, that I had to go through and sign and review and go back and forth on. We're so close to getting this. Nobody's changing property. Nobody's selling anything. It's been my property since day one. I'm leasing it to him. I mean, you know, if you want to give him December or next November, whatever it is. But I know he's going to get done with it. We're going to open this thing up by the first of the year and get going on it. So whatever you decide to do, but, you know, whatever I guess Mr. Moss decides would be the best.
There's 5 of us for a reason. Sometimes what I decide is not the best.
Okay.
Well, if you will, I'd like to entertain a motion that we extend the time for this rezone at least for several months. That would give the applicant plenty of time to get it through. It would be a moot subject after that. So, motion to approve for 3 months.
I would second the motion to extend time for a rezone for 3 months from today's date.
A little discussion, Madam Chair. The only thing I'd like to add is I think the board appreciates what you're doing and what MEC is doing, because prior to this, they were looking for getting their solar credits in the Phoenix area. So this is keeping the solar in Mohave County and any jobs that will be created in Mohave County. So it has nothing to do with your project. It's just the process is what we're debating today, that's all.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Number 34A, I'm going to open the public hearing, discussion and possible action, adoption of the Board of Supervisor Resolution Number 2014-164, amendment to Board of Supervisor Resolution Numbers 2010-230 and 2012-021 to amend Condition Number 3 of Board of Supervisor Resolution Number 2010-230 and Board of Supervisor Resolution Number 2012-021 regarding the timing of NEPA and WAPA approvals under amendments to the Mohave County General Plan for properties within the Sterling Area Plan in the Sterling vicinity, north of the BNSF Railroad and east of Old Route 66, Mohave County, Arizona. This item was continued from the September 10th, 2014 Planning and Zoning meeting. The Commission recommended approval by unanimous vote as follows. If the NEPA process and the WAPA interconnection permitting are not completed within 1 year of the Board's adoption of this resolution, the applicant shall provide sufficient evidence to the Commission and Board to demonstrate significant progress. Without such progress, the general plan and area plan amendments will not be considered vested and land uses will remain unchanged. Is there anyone wishing to speak to this? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Jack Jacob. I'm one of the owners of Sterling Solar. Address is 7463 East Timberlane Court in Scottsdale, Arizona. Initially, we're requesting a 3-year extension on this overlay, and one of the reasons was that we're about to go into the EIS portion of this, and it takes somewhere between the 2 and 3 years. But we have done this twice before, and because of the largeness of the project and everything, it has taken a lot longer. Basically, we hope that we would be doing it in less time. Actually, you know, we've got hopefully to do that. But after what basically we have done to do our feasibility study with WAPA and our facility study with WAPA, we now have to go and do about 210 miles of transmission line too in the EIS, which extends some of these time periods and everything with it. Now, in the last couple of years, because the time lapses of some of these studies actually can go on for a year or 2 years at a time. It's just a never-ending process. We have completed the facility study. We have completed the facilities and the feasibility studies, basically. And we're in the final process right now for the funding for the total project. So now what we need basically is the extension to go on with these studies. I did meet with Supervisor Bishop last week. I did try to get a hold of a couple others, but everybody seems to was out of town when I was up here last week. So I wasn't able to do that. And the reason I wanted to do that, and which I did with Supervisor Bishop, was show her all of the things that we have done and where we're at with WAPA studies, with the feasibility studies, and with the picking of the candidates to do the EIS project and everything. Some of them stuff is proprietary, of course, because you sign an awful lot of NDAs, and so it's hard to, just can't put it in public record just because of competitiveness and things like that. And so that's why I did that, like I say, to show, at least to you folks, that we are pressing on. In the last couple of years alone, we've put in probably $500,000-600,000 into studies and stuff. So I'm looking for an extension. Okay.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Any questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Hearing and seeing none, I close the public hearing.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve item 34A with all commission recommendations and conditions.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 34B, I'm going to open the public hearing. Discussion and possible action, adoption of Board of Supervisor Resolution Number 2014-165, amendment to Board of Supervisor Resolution Numbers 2010-231 and 2012-022 to amend Condition Number 4 of Board of Supervisor Resolution Number 2010-231 and the Board of Supervisor Resolution Number 2012-022 regarding the timing of NEPA and WAPA approvals under amendments to the Sterling Area Plan in the Sterling vicinity, north of the BNSF Railroad and east of Old Route 66, Mohave County, Arizona. Items continued from the September 10th, 2014 Planning and Zoning meeting. Commission recommended approval by unanimous vote as follows. If the NEPA process and WAPA interconnection permitting are not completed within 1 year of the board's adoption of this resolution, the applicant shall provide sufficient evidence to the commission and board to demonstrate significant progress. Without such progress, the general plan and area plan amendments will not be considered vested and land uses will remain unchanged. Anyone want to speak to this? 34B? Hearing and seeing none, I close the public hearing.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move to approve the 34B with all commission recommendations and conditions.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. 34C, opening the public hearing, discussion and possible action, adoption of Board of Supervisor Resolution Number 2014-166, amendment to Board of Supervisor Resolution Numbers 2010-233 and 2012-023 to amend Condition Number 9 of Board of Supervisor Resolution Number 2010-233 and Condition Number 3 of Board of Supervisor Resolution Number 2012-023, incorporating that condition regarding the timing of NEPA and WAPA approvals required under a rezone of properties within the Sterling Area Plan to establish an energy overlay zone in the Sterling vicinity, north of the BNSF Railroad and east of Old Route 66, Mohave County, Arizona. Is there anyone who wants to speak to 34C? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I'm closing the public hearing.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve item 34C with all commission recommendations and conditions.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That completes our public hearings. Regular agenda, number 35, discussion and possible action about the continued employment by the Board of Supervisors of Mike Hendricks as Mohave County Administrator.
Madam Chair, I would move that we continue this item to our next meeting date.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Before we go on, I do have someone who has signed up to speak. Is she Judy Toledo? Is she here?
Good morning, Chairman Angius and Supervisors. My name is Judy Toledo. I live at 3359 Roma Court, Kingman, Arizona. As a taxpayer and a Mohave County employee, I wanted to voice my opinion on this item. First of all, I would like to know why there was no backup posted for this item. It puzzles me that we want to be transparent, but yet there's no documentation posted for the public to see. There are several rumors going around about this item. While I don't want to comment about what they are, I want to make a couple comments to the board. One being, with dwindling revenues, I certainly hope that the county administrator is not asking to increase his contract or anything that would increase his salary in any way. I would hope that the county administrator would put the employees of Mohave County who haven't had annual performance raises or cost of living allowances before himself. I do realize that, yes, most of the employees have received a 2.5% raise in July 2013, a year and a half ago, but employee contributions to benefits have also increased, reducing that 2.5% raise. When the county administrator went from being a deputy county manager to the county administrator, he also received a raise, 7.45 to be exact. My final comment is that if he is asking for an increase, why? His job duties have not changed. He's still expected to perform the same job function as are the rest of Mohave County employees. And if they aren't getting performance or cost of living raises, then neither should he. Thank you for allowing me to voice my opinion.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this item to the next meeting. Is that what it is? Okay.
And Madam Chair, if I can
yes.
clarify something, if we can ask staff to include backup proposal to that. For the item, for the public comment.
Since,
Oh, absolutely.
okay.
Madam Chair, I don't know if this is, it's not up for public comment. I don't believe it's up to the board.
Right.
I have a comment to make. In reviewing the backup material that I've received on this, Mr. Hendricks has done one hell of a good job for the last number of months in this job. And he not only does one job as the administrator, he does two jobs, and that is the county engineer. So I would like to remind the audience that we're getting about a $130,000 bargain in this employment contract with Mr. Hendricks. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone has that information, that we're getting two employees for the price of one.
And I wholeheartedly endorse Supervisor Watson's comments.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 36, discussion and possible action, adoption of Board of Supervisors Resolution Number 2014-170, observing Mohave County's sesquicentennial birthday. That's 150 years in real numbers, on November 9th, 2014, and celebrating the remarkable history, rich heritage, and breathtaking landscapes that make Mohave County unique. Okay, with that, I have a resolution that I'm going to read, and I believe we have a slide presentation put together by,
Madam Rep,
yes, please.
may I make a motion for the adoption of the resolution?
Okay,
I'll second.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And now, I guess, I can read the motion.
Thank you.
And the resolution. And there's the slideshow. You ready? A resolution observing Mohave County's sesquicentennial birthday on November 9th, 2014, and celebrating the remarkable history, rich heritage, and breathtaking landscapes that make Mohave County unique. Whereas, on November 9th, 1864, the first Legislative Assembly of the Territory of Arizona was in session in Prescott, Arizona, and in accordance with the Howell Code, Chapter 2, of the Formation and Rights of Counties, divided the territory into counties, namely Pima, Yuma, Mohave, and Yavapai. And whereas the remarkable history of Mohave County includes 5 different county seats: Mohave City, 1864, Hardyville, 1867, Surbat, 1873, Mineral Park, 1877, Kingman, 1887, and has seen the transformation from a rustic covered wagon lifestyle to the modern existence we appreciate today. And whereas the rich heritage of Mohave County's history has also been shaped by the tribal nations and ever-changing industrial influences such as military operations, miners, railroaders, ranchers, and even government. And whereas the breathtaking landscapes within Mohave County vary in elevation from 500 to 8,417 feet and include several federal, state, and local parks and attractions along with recreational opportunities. And whereas these landscapes include both natural and man-made wonders such as the Grand Canyon, the Virgin River Canyon, the Colorado River, Hoover Dam, the London Bridge, Davis Dam, and now, therefore, be it resolved that the County of Mohave does hereby observe our sesquicentennial birthday, acknowledge our employees and their continued enrichment of Mohave County's history, and those who helped to develop the remarkable history and rich heritage that make Mohave County unique. Passed, approved, and adopted this 3rd day of November 2014. And we want to thank Linda Kelly, even though she doesn't want to be thanked or acknowledged for doing this wonderful presentation, which I'll take the time and rewatch because I couldn't see it while I was reading. But it looks pretty good, and we'll keep that up on our website that can be viewed at any time. I guess I should have read a little slower.
You did a fine job, Chairman.
Okay. Harvey House.
To accept the resolution. We already did vote on it? Yeah. Okay.
While we're watching this, a question just came up. We did the motion in a second, and we voted on it, correct? Yes,
Okay.
Yes, I might add that we'll be putting out a folder with some information on it and
On information on what?
our resolution and our celebration. And it's very similar to the one that Yavapai County did. And I would like to make sure that each of our supervisors avail themselves to their signature on that.
That's your car, right, Ken? That's right.
Pardon me?
Look at all that water. Those were the days.
Very good. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
That's wonderful. Okay, number 37, discussion and possible action. We have a presentation by our county assessor, Ron Nicholson, regarding Planet Ranch and provision of pertinent direction to staff. Mr. Nicholson. Is there something you want to say first?
Oh, no, he's here, though.
Ron Nicholson, County Assessor. I apologize for no backup on this. Buster agendized it. It was basically, this is the result of Steve Moss, or Supervisor Moss, Supervisor Johnson, who started me on this quest about 3 weeks ago and called me every other day or so often to see where I was at. And quite frankly, I didn't arrive at an end to this, hopefully, until this last Wednesday through Friday. And over the weekend, I tried to do a presentation then based on that, which I could then give to you orally. This speech concerns the Big Sandy Planet Ranch agreement and the Wallapai Bill Williams agreements that are before the Board of Supervisors. This is huge. It's complex. It touches on many issues of land ownership, government and Indian claims in Mohave County. This presentation is a little lengthy, but I've cut it down from what I originally sent you. But I believe it necessary for all the residents and property owners in Mohave County to understand just what is at stake and what all of you as a board are trying to accomplish. First, and I usually don't read stuff, but this is so long, I've got to use this as a prompt. First, let us take a look at, okay, I'm going to be throwing up some maps and exhibits as I go through this presentation, and hopefully the audience and the public will get an idea visually of what properties we're dealing with here. Members of the Mohave County Board of Supervisors requested me to make an attempt to offer a more simplified explanation of the 34 agreements and multitude of exhibits presented by the proponents of these agreements. I've been asked to quantify their impacts upon Mohave County. For the last 3 weeks, 3 weekends and every evening, I've endeavored to accomplish this task with backup from our very able staff. These are complicated, interrelated agreements that must have taken a long time to negotiate. I am surprised Mohave County was not included in the loop sooner. We all could have used more time to review what was recently presented. I don't think any of you even had any of this available until this last month. I have come to the conclusion that a lot of attorneys are a lot better off today because of all these agreements. I have approached this from the perspective of an assessor with over 20 years of experience. I am voicing my concerns, recognizing I have been elected to represent the citizens of Mohave County. These agreements and proposed congressional legislation, involves a wide assortment of issues that touch on every citizen and property owner in Mohave County. The players. Oh, I see. It doesn't all fit up there at one time. Okay, the players. The United States Department, thank you. That's our IT back there looking over my back. The United States Department of Interior, that's the DOI. The Wallapai Tribe. The United States as trustee for the tribe, its members and allottees. What is allotment? Allotment refers to the 4 off-reservation parcels held in trust by the United States for individual Indians in the Big Sandy River Basin, that is Wickiup. Because these are trust lands, they are currently not being taxed. Arizona Game and Fish, Arizona Department of Resources, the Lower Colorado River Multi-Species Conservation Program, which I'm just going to call the multi-species when I refer to it. The Bureau of Reclamation is the federal agency principally responsible for its implementation and management. Biner Cattle Company, owned by Biner. Baghdad Mine, owned by Biner. Baghdad Municipality, owned by Biner. Wickiup Wellfield, owned by Biner. First right of refusal property in Wickiup, owned by Biner. And the United States Congress and the President of the United States. Biner Cattle, Baghdad Mine, Municipality of Baghdad, Cypress Mine, Phelps Dodge, Freeport, Planet Ranch, Lincoln Ranch. The first right of refusal property and the Wickiup Wellfield are all interrelated ownerships. Dealing with one seems like the same as dealing with any of the others. Who is missing in all this? Mohave County. It's affecting us greatly, and we're not involved in any of it that I can see. History and background. First of all, I don't have it in there. Okay. History and background. Scottsdale Planet Ranch. This happened a while back. Scottsdale bought the Planet Ranch, which I remember Buster fought very hard for that not to happen, consisting of approximately 8,388 acres located in both Mohave County and La Paz County for a reported $11.7 million in 1984. Mohave County's portion is approximately 6,156 acres, and La Paz's portion, remember, here's the Bill Williams River, and so you have the south of that, which is La Paz County, and then north of that, of course, is Mohave County. There's 8,000 some acres. 6,000 resides in our county, roughly. La Paz's portion is 2,231 acres. Scottsdale acquired the land to retain the water rights. That's why they bought it. They bought it for the water rights. Scottsdale then sold the plant ranch to Freeport. They used part of this water right situation. We'll get to that in a minute. Scottsdale then sold the plant ranch to Freeport for $10.5 million on December 14th, 2011. As part of the deal, Scottsdale retained 50,000 acre-feet of water for future withdrawal from Salt River Project, valued at roughly $14 to $18 million by the city of Scottsdale. Scottsdale will be able to use 500 acre-feet of the Salt River Project annually for the next 100 years. That means, in my mind, that there will be 500 acre-feet less for the next 100 years to be drawn out of the Planet Ranch here in Mohave County. Note, to arrive at the $14 million, $18 million valuation, the same methodology must have been used that I will use to arrive at the present-day value of the income stream of future property taxes lost. The aforementioned players have negotiated some 34 agreements to, 1, arrive at a comprehensive settlement with the Hualapai tribe to resolve all of the tribe's water claims to the Colorado River system, including the Verde River and the Bill Williams River in Arizona. 2, as participants in the tribe's resolution, the Department of Interior, Freeport, Arizona Game and Fish, Arizona Department of Water negotiated to lease and convey certain Planet Ranch lands and appurtenant water rights owned by Biner to the Lower Colorado River Multi-Species Conservation Program, which we'll call multi-species, and then sell those leased lands and appurtenant water rights to Arizona Game and Fish. So they're left with no ownership in this, or portion of this at some point. The Hualapai tribe is to obtain the first right of refusal purchase This is the property, first right of refusal purchase property, that is colored for everybody to see. Some of it's in pink, and I believe if you go down a little more, you'll have some green. It's all in Wikiup. This is as you drive through Wikiup, and you're looking down from an aerial. Identified lands in the Wikiup area should Biner ever attempt to sell them. So there's a first right of refusal for the tribe, the Hualapai tribe. I'm inclined to assume the tribe and Department of Interior will attempt to annex them in the future into the tribe. That's a real distinct possibility. Freeport will attain a secured water source by the severance, and transfer of water from the Planet Ranch and the Lincoln Ranch, which is really in La Paz County on the other side of the river, for the Baghdad mine, town of Baghdad, a municipality, its Wikiup wellfield interests, its Biner cattle ranch property, and its remainder portion of the Planet Ranch after giving Scottsdale the 50,000 feet that's already been contracted for. That's 50,000 acre feet. So let's discuss the players. Who are we dealing with here? So we can get a better understanding of all this. There's Biner Cattle Ranch. Biner owns some 405 acres and personal property in Mohave County. The Mohave County Assessor's records reveal the following, and we can look here.
I have a question.
Sure, go right ahead.
That was over 405 pieces of property, not acres, right?
Biner owns some 405 parcels of property, assessor's parcels, yes. Parcels and personal property in Mohave County. Mohave County's assessor's records reveal the following. Biner Cattle Ranch exists and qualifies for beneficial agricultural valuation and tax treatment on many of its properties. In other words, it's getting a tax break by leasing approximately its 24,617 acres of holdings to the Francis Creek Ranch. It appears that Biner Cattle Ranch is not in the ranching business, even though it has a name, ranch, but merely leases its holdings to attain beneficial agricultural tax status. Now, mind you, this is as the law allows. They're not breaking any laws here. Due to its ag status, the total appropriate aggregate full cash value of these 24,617 acres in Mohave County is approximately just $254,700. This computes into a total yearly tax of approximately $2,802 on these 24,000 plus parcels, equating to the yearly taxes that a homeowner of a $280,000 home pays on average in Mohave County. If agricultural status were removed, the estimated full cash value of the holdings would increase to $19,895,143, and the yearly taxes would increase to approximately $225,121. This would be a 78 times increase. Our median value on this land as assessors per an acre is $980 due to its rural location, large size, and accessibility of a lot of it. Biner Cattle, besides owning the plant ranch, also owns 4 other parcels. Our assessor records show that it is valued at a full cash value of $827,000 and an approximate annual tax bill of $7,627. Mind you, it's not under ag status. Biner Cattle also owns extensive water rights with the plant ranch, plus its holdings in the Wickiup area. Freeport, mind you, similar to Biner, Freeport also holds 4 parcels, 350 acres, not on ag, that have a total full cash values of $52,000, land area of 350 acres, and taxes of $572. Biner pays total property taxes of an estimated $11,000 a year on holdings of approximately 31,123 acres in Mohave County. Wickiup and Baghdad Mine. Currently, water is piped across the mountain from the Wickiup well field in Mohave County to the Baghdad Mine in Yavapai County. The pipe has a carrying capacity of 11,600 acre feet per year. It pumps roughly 7,200 gallons per minute. The new contracts seek to limit the amount of water carried to 10,055 acre feet a year, which is the yearly amount it's been using since 1995. The infrastructure to deliver water from the Wickiup well field to the Baghdad town site for municipal purposes has not yet been constructed. Water for municipal purposes at the Baghdad town site is currently supplied by the Francis Creek, a tributary of the Big Sandy River within the Big Williams watershed and certain groundwater wells. 11 Planet and Lincoln Ranch applications propose to sever and transfer current water rights from the Planet Ranch and Lincoln Ranch to the Baghdad Mine Complex and the Baghdad town site. The Baghdad Ranch applications seek to add legal authority for existing withdrawals of the water from the Wickiup wellfield points of diversion for the current future mining uses at Baghdad. This here is a map showing the well sites. It was presented by the proponents of this bill. It also shows where various other properties we'll talk about here in a minute that the Indians currently control and own, and what they seek would be the as right of first refusal properties. The Planet Ranch applications do not seek to physically move water from the current place of use in the Bill Williams watershed to the proposed new place of use, which is a different sub-watershed of the Bill Williams watershed. This is a paper trade only and simply allows more water to be pumped out of the Wickiup area. The total quantity of water sought to be severed and transferred to the Wickiup well field is 8,873 acre feet per year from the Planet Ranch. When in the future, now this is where the director of Arizona Department of Water comes in. In the future, the director of ADWAR determines that when they determine that satisfactory evidence has been provided of completion of the construction of the infrastructure, that is another pipe, a new pipe for the Baghdad municipality, and demonstrates that the water that is to be delivered to the Baghdad town site can be put to a beneficial use for municipal purposes, not mine purposes, at the Baghdad town site, whichever is later, Freeport Minerals will be entitled to use the water rights severed and transferred under the Planet Ranch and Lincoln Ranch applications for municipal purposes in Baghdad town site. Upon the director's receipt of notice that the aforementioned events have occurred, the department shall amend the department's records to reflect the severance and transfer of a portion of the water rights in an amount of 1,181 acre-feet for current and future mining purposes by water being diverted from the Big Sandy River by Wickiup Wellfield points of diversion. Withdrawals from the Wickiup Wellfield points of diversion have a direct and an appreciable effect on the Big Sandy River stream flow. That's not me, that's directly out of their documents. Note, I was always led to believe that water can only be transferred across county lines for mining purposes. I've never heard that it can be transferred across county lines for municipal purposes. Transfer of ownership by Biner to Arizona Game and Fish. These are the deals, okay? Transfer of ownership by Biner, Biner, Freeport, whatever, to Arizona Game and Fish of a portion of the Plant Ranch. First Biner Cattle will lease a portion of the Plant Ranch for 50 years to the Bureau of Reclamation for purposes of the Lower Colorado multi-species. Biner will retain the fee simple ownership of the underlying lease.
Yeah.
This shows what's in lined red on this map is what they're proposing to transfer to the multi-species and, of course, to Arizona Game and Fish. It's not the entire Planet Ranch. Okay. Biner will retain fee simple ownership of the underlying lease. Biner's fee interest in the leased premises, including without limitation any reversionary interest that Biner may have in the leased premises, is now referred to as donation property. Why they're calling it donation, there must be some legal reasons here, I don't know. But the Biner Cattle will then immediately donate this fee interest as the leaseor of the donation property to Arizona Game and Fish, subject to the lease with multi-species. The state of Arizona, acting on behalf of the Arizona Game and Fish, has agreed to accept the donation of the donation property. Arizona Game and Fish then acknowledges that reclamation, mind you, which oversees a multi-species group, has paid all the rent. Mind you, they're the ones that are paying the rent due under the lease at the close of escrow. What is the rent? Reclamation, in consideration of the covenants and agreements made by Biner, shall pay Biner the amount of $8,300,000. All 50 years of the rent paid up front in full on day one. Reclamation shall make payment of the rent in one lump sum via wired federal funds to the escrow account, who shall wire funds to an account designated by Biner upon the lease closing. Payment of the rent shall constitute payment of all rents, fees, taxes, assessments, administrative costs, and other charges for the lease owing to Biner or its successors or assignees, except or otherwise provided in the lease. Reclamation's payment of the rent shall not relieve it of performing any of its covenants under the lease. And then my comment is, I suppose at this point someone's going to ask, where's the money coming from? Is it our tax dollars? Could some of it been used to save the trout that you all were so involved with? I might further add that, as they say, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it must be a duck. This transaction has all the appearances of a sale, not a donation. Mohave County's Assessor's Office estimates 1,945 acres represent Mohave County's portion of the plant ranch to be conveyed to the Arizona Game and Fish. Biner will retain 4,211 acres of the plant ranch in Mohave County. Biner secures water for its Baghdad mine and municipality of Baghdad. Biner secures water. 1, a total of 8,873 acre-feet a year from the transfer of water attached to 1,670 acres of its plant ranch holdings for the Baghdad mine and Baghdad municipality. 2, a total of 1,435 acre-feet per year from the Wickiup well field, that's 5 wells, I believe, for the Baghdad mine and the Baghdad municipality. A total of 2,325 acre-feet a year from the 208 acres of the Lincoln Ranch for stock watering and agriculture, and 2,794 acre-feet a year from its 5 wells in the Wickiup well field for stock watering and agricultural. The 8,873 acre-feet a year from the Planet Ranch and the 2,325 acre-feet a year from the Lincoln Ranch, I repeat, once again, are paper transfers. They allow more water to be pumped out of the Wickiup well field. Biner secures a future buyer. Okay, these are all the advantages to Biner. Biner secures a future buyer for some of its property by negotiating a first right of refusal agreement with the Wallapai tribe for 2,965 acres it owns on both sides of Highway 93, now being called Highway 11, as you enter Wickiup from the south. Biner earns $8.3 million from the multi-species on the first day of close of escrow. It appears that besides securing future water for the Baghdad mine, which is considered synonymous with Berner cattle in Freeport, Biner is netting $7.3 million minus closing costs, $3.3 million from the from multi-species, Arizona Game and Fish, minus $1 million, which they're now paying to the Wallapai tribe. Arizona Game and Fish, multi-species, gains 1,945 acres from the Planet Ranch in Mohave County to expand its habitat. It also gains a total of 5,549 acre-feet a year from water rights severed and transferred within the Planet Ranch, in other words, within its planet, but guaranteed and owned by Biner to the multi-species, of which 1,294 acre-feet is for irrigation of agricultural fields, habitat creation, restoration, and maintenance for the benefit of fish and wildlife, as well as an additional 4,255 acre-feet a year for irrigation. What does the Wallapai tribe get? Freeport agrees to pay the tribe $1 million for the tribe's study of water project alternatives. Don't really know what that means. The tribe secures 300 acre-feet a year from Parcel 3 on the Big Sandy River, confirms federal reserved water rights of 82 acre-feet a year from Parcel 1, 312 acre-feet a year for Parcel 2, held by the United States as trustees for those individual Indians. The right to pump a combined total of 379 gallons per minute from 4 wells at its Cholla Canyon Ranch well sites, that also secures 242 acre-feet a year from its Coford Hot Springs site. The tribe's first right of refusal. The tribe is negotiating a first right of refusal to purchase in the future certain land owned by Freeport, Biner, cattle, Baghdad mine. The land is located on both sides of Highway 93 as Wickiup is entered from the south. There are 14 assessor parcels identified as Banegas, B-A-N-E-G-A-S, and 63 assessor parcels identified as Rofer, for a total of 77 parcels consisting of approximately 2,964 acres. Most of the parcels are receiving agricultural benefits currently. The current full cash value of all 77 parcels is $196,949. And the estimated taxes are $2,228 a year. If agricultural status were removed, the total estimated full cash value would be $2,684,472, and the estimated taxes would be $402,670. This is a 14 times increase. If the tribe exercises its right to annex, there will be no taxes, and there will be no private use. The assessor's median full cash value per an acre of these parcels is $2,474. There's additional information. There's sure to be some questions regarding the favorable tax treatment of ranches. I'd like to address that just for a minute, because we're not hard here on ranches. Not only in Mohave County, but statewide. But this favorable tax treatment is provided for in Arizona statute. It's all legal. Our qualified ranchers by state law pay a per acre property tax that's generally pennies on the dollar when compared to that which similar land pays that is not qualified for agricultural. Let me start off by saying that many of our ranches are family affairs and support a lifestyle that is uniquely American. They entertain us at our Mohave County parades and rodeos. They're an integral part of Mohave County culture. They contribute beef to our nation and make a financial contribution to our economy. They're the stuff of legend like Tom Mix, Gene Autry, Roy Rogers, and Andy Devine. And they work hard. To qualify as a ranch, it takes roughly 5,000 acres under ownership or lease, plus a required number of cattle that meet carrying capacity. A very long time ago, a commission determined the carrying capacity of all land in the state. It deemed how many cattle a piece of land could support without starting to be harmed. Dry river wash was the lowest. Next came scrub land, and then what I'd call lush and plush. To qualify for ag status, a ranch must have enough cattle to equal the carrying capacity. Ranches meet the 5,000 acre goal by leasing surrounding lands. These can be BLM, Arizona State, or private. For an investor or landowner who is in the rancher's allotment, a lease can be negotiated. It's like winning the lotto and a pass to taxpayer heaven for these property owners. A requirement for land to qualify is that it must make a significant contribution to the functioning of the ranch. Small acreages generally do not qualify, and the ranch must carry the requisite number of cattle to meet the total carrying capacity. I've often thought that if I was a property owner of raw land and wanted to hold that land for future profits and development, I'd be looking nearby for a qualified rancher. I would even be willing to offer an inducement to that rancher to rent my land. There is nothing illegal in any of this. It is all according to state law, and my office strives to validate all applications and make sure that they are all above board. It does upset people who complain that they're paying significantly more tax for their open range they own that is without a lease than their neighbors who have leased. I do not think Biter Cattle is a real rancher in Mohave County. I believe they're a company that has attained ag status due to leasing its acreage to Francis Creek Ranch. Francis Creek Ranch obviously deems the lease a necessary contribution to its operation. Okay, my conclusion, for finally getting to it. And you asked me to voice my concerns as I saw them. Concern 1, I do not oppose the Indian tribes buying Mohave County taxable private real property. I just wish we could get some quid pro in the return. I believe in investing in America. I say buy America. I say buy Mohave County. I do object to that property being annexed into the tribe forever, being removed from taxation, and forever being removed from the ownership, enjoyment of our children, of our children's children, and never contributing to the financial well-being of the community. It has been my observation that when a tribe seeks annexation of private holdings, there is no due process. The Department of Interior may seek input from the stakeholders, but I have never been notified of hearings or appeal rights. It seems as if one day some employee in the Department of Interior signs off and it's a done deal. The situations where I have heard it contested would be like the state versus the Oneida tribe. That required expensive litigation and strong political will. No one knows what this land will be worth 100 years from now, or how, if given the opportunity, it may be developed into something quite valuable for the betterment of our property tax-paying citizens and community. Now, this has nothing to do with Biner or the other private Mohave County citizens. As owners, they have a right to sell their property to whomever they want for the best price that the market can offer. But I find it hard to imagine tribes buying private taxable property and graciously paying taxes when they might have the opportunity to escape taxation. All of us would do that. Mohave County only has an estimated 13 13.76% private property available for private ownership. That's 13.76%. That 13.76% pretty much pays all the property taxes for all the services provided on both private owners and non-private property. This 13.76% is paying for the infrastructure, roads, fire, and et cetera, up to the boundaries of the non-private ownership. When private property is removed from the tax base, such as in this case, where land is being conveyed to Arizona Game and Fish, and likely future removal by the tribe, all the rest of private owners will see increase in their tax burden, as they must pick up the slack. And this is referred to in some circles as a tax shift. Concern number 2. I have estimated the impact of the removal of 1,945 acres in Mohave County from the tax base when conveyed to Arizona Game and Fish. This may result in property tax loss of $7,000 a year and more forever. The property being conveyed is the most desirable in the area. Just as Scottsdale used time value of money formula to value the present worth of an income stream of 100 years of water supply, we will do so here. A $7,000 a year income stream for 100 years is worth roughly $39,500,000 in today's dollars. This is just 100 years when taxes can be anticipated to be collected forever, and we can anticipate that those taxes will continue to increase every year. Concern 3. I have estimated the impact of the removal of 2,964 acres in Mohave County from the Mohave County tax base should the Wallapai tribe exercise the proposed first right of refusal. This may result in a property tax loss of $30,375 a year or more forever. The property being conveyed is also desirable as it sits on Highway 93, 95, Highway 11. The $30,375 a year income stream for 100 years is worth $171,265,000 in today's dollars. This also is just for 100 years when taxes can be anticipated to be collected forever. In fact, forever, in other words, in perpetuity, and we can anticipate those taxes will continue to increase every year. Only a couple more pages of my concerns. Concern 4. In looking at the donation property agreement and lease, I wonder why so much effort went into defining the terms of the lease and responsibilities of the lessor, Biner Cattle, to the lessee, the multi-species, when the very act of donating would seem to relieve the responsibilities of Biner as lessor to upgrading the property for water infrastructure and irrigation. As per the terms of the lease, it seems to me that multi-species and Arizona Game Fish are near synonymous. Concern 5. I do believe that each party in the the multi-contract agreement with its accompanying congressional legislation has negotiated to their best individual interests. My major concern is that interests of this magnitude are going to have major impacts on the people of Mohave County. Their concerns should be solicited. While each party has negotiated to their best interests, no one has asked the people who elected us to represent them their thoughts. There should be a few town hall meetings. Polls should be taken. Place for input should be provided. Concern 6. I see Plant Ranch, Bill Williams, and Wickiup as our next big areas for future development. Wickiup is located on Highway 93. It's being improved as the CanMex Highway. And Phoenix is only a couple hours south. Prescott is close by. Kingman is an hour away, and Flagstaff not much further. The inhabitants of Wickiup tell me of tall cottonwoods and of a lush valley, similar to what currently in the Bill Williams area prior to the installation of the Baghdad pipeline. This proposal seems to be trading the future of Bill Williams for the future of Wickiup so that a mine and town in another county can be developed. I think we should have both. The Plant Ranch lies between Parker and the lower river, and Lake Havasu Lake is prime for future development. Concern 7. I have not seen anything regarding the maximum acre feet per year that can be pumped from the surface waters and deep wells of the Wickiup well field and the Plant Ranch before we are beyond the point of replenishment. There seems to be a lot of water being traded out there. Concern 8. The Scottsdale Agreement seems to have a 100 years sunset. I have not seen any census built into these agreements. They seem to go on for in perpetuity. I do not see anything about what happens to the right to continue pumping water to the Baghdad mine after the mine, 40 years from now, which is projected, will cease to be reclaiming ore. Concern number 9. It appears to me that the Baghdad municipality and town site is attempting to piggyback its future water needs upon the water agreement with the Baghdad mine. This does not seem right. It limits Mohave County water for its own municipal development. And while the mine might legally obtain water across county lines, I do not think the city can. Concern 10. The Bill Williams water rights settlement agreement, okay, this is what's been dropped as a bill in Congress, has all the appearances of single constituent legislation. In other words, the entire United States Congress and the President of the United States are being asked to pass legislation to benefit just a few. These agreements seem to require approval of the act by the United States Congress, both branches, and the signature of the President of the United States. The act is depicted in Exhibit 222, I think I have here 22. Arizona Senators Jeff Flake, John McCain are sponsoring the bill through Congress. Our Congressman Paul Gosar has seemed supportive from what you've all told me. It appears that Mohave County's property and water rights are crucial, this is my note, to a much larger global settlement of water rights regarding saving the Baghdad mine water supply and the Indian tribes' water claims, and Arizona Game and Fish's desire to expand its control to property it deems necessary to its mission. And that's all, folks. Can I answer any questions? Don't assign me another assignment like this.
Well, thank you very much. It's just mind-numbing and mind-blowing.
There's a lot to it.
You did a lot of work, so thank you so much. I know that Supervisor Moss has some questions.
Oh, okay, well, thank you. I just want to encapsulate your presentation here to make sure that the residents who are listening can get a short summary. And that is currently thousands of acres will be moved out of private ownership into government ownership. In the future, tens of thousands of acres could be moved out of private ownership into government ownership, which will reduce the tax base of Mohave County, Arizona, which means the burdens will be increased on everyone else. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct.
Secondly, water is being removed from Mohave County, Arizona for purposes of some federal projects, for purposes of this mining company in Yavapai County, and for purposes of supporting a town in Yavapai County. Is that also correct?
That's as I see it, yes.
When it comes to this process, is it your contention that this would have a significant detrimental impact on Mohave County's long-term prospects?
Yes.
Good. I say that only because people in the state level and the federal level like to pretend there is no...
I say that from the perspective not just of taxation, but from the perspective of development in the future development in the Wickiup area and future development in the Plant Ranch area.
Yes, and that I think to us, to me, to you, to the remainder of the board, that's obvious, but we have state officials and we have federal officials trying to pretend that's not the case. And we have to let them know that we've looked at this agreement too, even though we got it very, very late in the game. And we have now analyzed it, and they're just dead wrong. They're not telling the truth, or they haven't read it themselves. It's one or the other. Finally, my understanding is from a phone conversation from you was decades ago, Mohave County was roughly 17% owned privately based upon some old records that are out there.
That is correct.
And now we're down to 13.7%. Privately owned.
That is correct.
And we're going further down the road to decreasing our private ownership based upon deals like this.
That is correct.
That's all I have. Thank you, Ron. You've been a hero. You've been a champion. I think the taxpayers got money out of you. You got the
Thank you
money's
very
worth.
much. Thank you.
Wait.
Madam Chair.
Ron, I'm not the only important person up here. In fact, I'm the least important.
Ron, I have a
Don't
question
run
for
away.
you, Ron, or just besides thanking you and finding it hard to believe that now Steve Moss is encapsulating for you.
I need to summarize things in my head. This is the executive summary.
Okay. Part of that, what you said too, and to go farther with Supervisor Moss, is a lot of the numbers you're taking are in the contract, but like the amount of water that they're claiming is being pumped to Baghdad is only what they're telling us, because there are no monitors on those wells to say, yes, they're pumping this amount of acre feet. So when you say, well, they were, in the report, they're doing 11,000 acre feet, now they're going to do 10.5 or whatever it was, we just have their word for it. We have no idea how much water has been. And to further go along with what Supervisor Moss and you were saying, as far as the development of the Wickiup area, there will absolutely be no development now with these trades. If they go through, it will all be in government or Indian land. So as far as any kind of development or tax dollars coming out, it'll be about zero. Would that be correct?
Unless they decide to put a casino out there.
And then we get
But I'd like...
That's all I had, but we really appreciate what you put together.
If they're going to put a casino on the property?
Pardon me? Oh, I was being facetious, but I was looking at this, I was saying, what would be the beneficial use for the tribe to own, as you drive from the south into Wickiup, having access through both sides of the main highway. And that's halfway, a long drive from Phoenix, from Wickenburg. I can see that as a possibility, but, I'm not the tribe, and I'm just throwing it out there, being facetious, I suppose.
Certainly. I'd just, if I could, like to thank you for an excellent job on a summary of the situation. This is in my district, District 1, and this has a huge bearing on the future of that entire Big Sandy Valley. And if this agreement goes through as it is written, it will be essentially cutting off any future development of that entire valley. And I'd like to remind you that when we see this water go from Mohave County over to Baghdad, and then Baghdad uses that for the Baghdad city, they'll be doing that in part to keep one of their golf courses in pristine condition. So just think about that. Mohave County gets to water one of their golf courses in Yavapai County. It doesn't set well with me.
No. I'd hate to drive all the way to Yavapai County to play golf. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. And I hope our elected officials, I'll make sure that they get your presentation in their hands as well. Okay, 38, discussion.
Chair?
Yes.
If I may, go to the presentation I had before, because I do have somebody here that might have to go back to school.
I'm sorry.
If I can go to my presentation from
Oh,
when we
sure.
carried over. Madam Chair, with Veterans Day approaching, the Mohave County Board of Supervisors would like to recognize and thank the Mohave County employees who have served in our armed forces. Freedom is never free, and these men and women took time out of their lives to protect our country, and not only our freedom, but freedom around the world. As we get ready to cast our ballots tomorrow, it is important to remember all veterans who made it possible. And with us today, we also have Boy Scout Jason Casado of Troop 25 in Lake Havasu City, who is working to attain the rank of Eagle Scout. He would like to give each of our veterans a star from flags that he has replaced at a retirement ceremony, along with a card of thanks written by students from Moore Grande Elementary School with the help of the English honor students at the junior high. And I'll have him come up afterwards. I believe we have a list that we can put up on the board. I'll read the names. This is not a complete list of our veterans, as some have requested no acknowledgement, but we do want to thank all of them. We have Todd Aaron, he's served with the U.S. Navy. David Adams, Air Force. Terry Bond, Army. Brian Bennett, Air Force. Christy Blair, Army. Cheryl Bronson, Army. Doug Bryant, Air Force. Nicole Casado, Air Force. Corey Cleaver, Army. Judge Stephen Kahn, Army. Beth Cordes, Navy. Chris Cox, Army. Steve Cromer, Army. John Crowder, Army. Ken Cunningham, Marine Corps. Scott Durst, Navy. Kelly Dysart, Marine Corps. Bob Effa, Army. Don Elzey, Marine Corps. Dale Gibson, Army. Jim Glover, Marine Corps. Jim Graves, Navy. Cindy Hale, Air Force. Gene Hepler, Navy. Frances Betsy Huntington, Air Force. Nicholas Ingrassi, U.S. Army. Gary Lasham, Navy. Maria Lundquist, Marine Corps. Ken McKean, Air Force. Jennifer McNally, Army. Greg Martin, Marine Corps. Ron Nicholson, Air Force. Rebecca Orem, Navy. Amber Orr, Army. Robert Oscar, Navy. Jack Pape, Army. Richard Prather, Navy. Carlos Rooks, Navy. Mike Ross, Navy. Mike Summit, Army. Jack Sinclair, Marines. Frederick Shade, Marines. Roger Stewart, Army. Mario Vigil, Navy. Scott Wheeler, Army. And Terry White, Army. We want to thank all of them, and if Jason, would you like to come forward and present some of your things to a few of the veterans we have here, and then we can get them later on after the meeting to the others? Do you have anything you would like to say to the people, or I'm not putting you on the spot for speaking if you don't want to speak, but if we can get some of our veterans who happen to be in the audience to come forward. You want to use the microphone right up there, Jason? Again. Right there in front of that podium. You can just bend that.
I'd like to present a star that has been cut out of a worn U.S. flag that needs to be retired, along with a card that has been decorated and a letter written inside from a 4th through 6th grader at Oral Run Elementary School to some of the veterans here today.
You don't have a camera. Jason, you want to get with the people over here? We'd like to take a picture of you if it's possible. Thank you. Thank our veterans, and Jason, if you will go upstairs to the county administrator's office, Yvonne Orr will make sure that we get your stars and cards to all the other veterans in Mohave County. Thank you again.
And thank you to Supervisor Johnson for putting this together. Okay. 38. Discussion and possible action, adoption of Board of Supervisors Resolution Number 2014-171, providing scoping comment to the Bureau of Land Management for the NEPA process concerning the Baghdad Mine proposed stockpile extension project, and provide copies of those comments to the county's congressional delegation, the Secretary of the Interior, and the Governor. In addition, authorize and direct the Development Services Director to negotiate with the Bureau of Land Management to develop and sign on behalf of the county a memorandum of understanding recognizing Mohave County as a cooperating agency in any NEPA process for the Baghdad Mine proposed stockpile extension project. Supervisor Watson.
Thank you. Chairman Angius, I bring this item to you, concern over the Baghdad mine. This is basically an extension of their tailings operation. It does have a direct bearing on what happens here in Mohave County, as it will be using some of Mohave County's mine, or water mined in Mohave County, but also it could be at the end portion of this tailings, there could be some problems down the road from the leaching materials through that mineral and through that process. So we certainly want to be involved in this process, in the NEPA process. We want to make sure we continue to have a seat at the table and not being invited just to be lunch.
Is that in the form of a motion, Supervisor? Because if so, I'll second it.
Make a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 2014-171 to provide for the process.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 39, discussion and possible action regarding the legal advice on the engagement and fee agreement for legal services provided by Sedgwick LLP as it relates to the authorization provided by the Board of Supervisors under Board of Supervisor Resolution Number 2014-138, approving Mohave County's joining the American Stewards of Liberty in petitioning and potentially suing the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service pursuant to the Endangered Species Act to compel the service to delist the Hualapai Mexican vole.
Madam Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to make a motion that we approve you signing the agreement that was presented for your review, conditioned upon the underlying agreement regarding the division and reimbursement of attorney fees being provided for our council's review.
And I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.